So then you finished your bachelor's degree at University of Nevada. What was the next step for you?
Well, so because I finished in 3 years, and Nancy did not, she finished in 4 years. She was still in school, and so I decided I would apply to the master's program. So the University of Nevada had a master's program in philosophy. And so I entered the master's program while Nancy was finishing. And then eventually applied to Stanford for graduate study. And so that's what I did. And I did a master's degree, wrote a master's thesis, actually probably longer than my PhD dissertation, frankly.
And at that point, were your interests in subfields of philosophy already pretty clear, or did that come later?
So I've always been attracted to the harder end of philosophy, harder in the sense of less literary, more mathematical. And so, yes, I'm interested in analytic philosophy and the history of analytic philosophy, but in particular, I'm interested in logic and philosophy of logic, history of logic. And that had become pretty clear to me already at UNR.
Okay.
Though I remember, you'll love this. So when I wrote, you write a statement of purpose with your application, and when I wrote my statement of purpose, I said that I happened to be writing a term paper on Spinoza. So I said I was passionate about Spinoza and wanted to work on Spinoza. Now that's a stupid thing to say to them. Nobody worked on Spinoza anywhere, actually. But anyway, that's what I wrote in my statement of purpose to Stanford Philosophy Department.
And was Stanford the only place that you applied for graduate work?
No, I didn't make that mistake twice. So I applied to a number of different places. I applied to Stanford, Princeton, Chicago, Duke, and mostly got rejected. It's very hard to make the jump from an undergraduate degree at the University of Nevada to a graduate program at one of these top schools. It just is hard. And I got into Duke. I was put on the wait list at Stanford and rejected everywhere else. So at Duke, they offered me this very fancy fellowship. And they offered it to me in December, and they said, you have to either accept it or reject it right now, because otherwise we'll give it to somebody else. But you can still pull out as of April 15th, because that is the agreement, the nationwide agreement about when not forcing students to commit too soon. So I said, okay, I'll come to Duke. And then as time went on, so I was on the wait list at Stanford and had no other real options. Nancy and I were planning to move to Durham, North Carolina. We had a Durham phone book, even. We're looking at, And meanwhile, I was calling probably just about every day, certainly every few days, calling the Stanford department, saying, well, has a slot opened up? Has a slot opened up? And then on April 15th, I called up and I told the department administrator, who I've come to know quite well in subsequent years, I said, I have to know by 5 o'clock Eastern time, or else I will not be able to pull out of Duke. And so she put down her phone, put down the headset of her phone, not on hold, but just down on her desk. She went out in the hall and she shouted, Ian Hacking was chair, Ian, you have to tell this young man whether he can get in. And so then she came back and she said, well, we'll do our best. And then that was the end of the phone call. And then Ian hacking called me within a half hour and said, we want to offer you a spot. And so Gail Francis, that was the administrator's name, I think it was really Gail Francis that got me into Stanford.